It kind of freaks me out that the phrase Gen 6 is something that occasionally comes up in conversations surrounding My Little Pony, because when Friendship is Magic was still airing, Gen 5 sounded like some sort of far out impossible thing. When I was a kid, I tried to construct in my head what I thought My Little Pony Gen 5 was going to be like, and it was basically me trying to justify in my head a way to get more G4. But today, I'm going to go over how I would handle a 6th generation of My Little Pony, if given the opportunity. And after a lot of thinking and drafting, this is my pitch for a series I would call My Little Pony Chronicles. I want to first set the scene. Our story follows a girl named Megan Williams.
Wait a minute, where are the mares?
In a minute! Megan was quite the adventurer as a kid, often spending her summers and after-school breaks with her twin brother, Danny Williams, traveling out into the forest that extended beyond the backyard of their parents' home, a magical experience unique to childhood, where you feel like anything can happen. However, tragedy would strike when Megan would lose her brother whilst out playing, and despite many search and rescue attempts from across the local community, Danny Williams was never found. Megan would never return to the forest to play. It was just not the same without him, and she was too scared to venture out regardless, only returning once a year with her parents to pay respect to him, just on the edge of the forest. Years would pass, and now Megan has just completed her sophomore year of college. And having not been home in 2 years, she decides to pay her family a visit, which would eventually lead her once again to the forest. Older now, and with her anxieties tempered, she would explore out into the forest once more, going down memory lane and to gain some closure. It was surprising how much smaller everything was. It was a wonder how Danny got lost in here. She would find herself at the pond where they used to skip stones. However, something seemed different. The pond was glowing white. The sun was perfectly placed above it, and when she looked down at the water, a perfect mirrored image of herself was staring right back at her. Megan presses her hand into the water. It suddenly feels heavy like an anchor. She suddenly pulled into the bottom of the pond, with swimming for freedom becoming harder and harder. When she emerges to the surface, she would gasp for air as she crawls on shore, so surrounded by the forest, but the trees were completely different, appearing foreign and fantastical. She looks down at her hands to see nubs. No, not nubs. Hooves. And that's when she heard it. Whoa, hey, are you okay? She looks up and sees a minty green unicorn sitting on a tree stump, harp and hoof just in front of her. The only thing she could respond with was, "Where is my brother?" Yes, this is an isekai. I know humans can be a controversial element of My Little Pony. In many cartoons, fans can find audience surrogates like these to be quite annoying, as it can just take away from the fantastical characters or worlds they want to be more engaged with. Name me one person whose favorite Transformer character is Spite Witwicky, but to me, the audience surrogate isn't the issue. What makes one good or bad is entirely dependent on how they are used. A good audience surrogate not only has to be a good character on their own, with their own goals, flaws, and arcs, but they also must be a delivery system of the story's world building. A character like this can be highly valuable. As a character who was born and raised in a fantasy setting, some peculiarities would just seem normal. So it's hard to find a natural way to explain the intricacies to the audience without it feeling as if it relies on exposition that the characters should already know. Example, think about how cutie marks worked in Generation 4. They are described as being a reflection of one's greatest talent, but some seem to be completely driven by their personality, like Applejacks, but others seem to have no meaning whatsoever, no indication of who they are as a person or what their skills are, which can be especially hard to wrap your head around, as it's hard to even conceptualize how they would earn that mark. There really is nowhere in the series for that bit of world building to be elaborated on without it feeling as if it's being read off of some sort of lore textbook. But with a character with fresh eyes trying to learn about the world as much as we are, they try to make sense of it, so we can properly engage in its rules moving forward. The blow of Megan being a human is significantly softened with her turning into a pony, which I'm sure would greatly reduce the weirdness of a human just walking around. Now I want to move on to just give a description to each of our main characters. This series would follow 4 primary characters. The aforementioned Megan Williams is a Pegasus pony when she comes to Equestria. Her biggest flaw is her guilt, something she has held on to since she was a kid after Danny went missing. This leads her to refuse help from her friends as she worries about burdening them with her mistakes. I wanted her to be a Pegasus to serve as a physical checkmark of her growth. The more she's willing to open herself up to her friends and forgive herself, the more she learns how to fly fluently. The next character is Lyra Heartstrings, a unicorn who is going to act as the main foil to Megan. Lyra also suffers suffers from incredible guilt, mainly surrounding a fallout with a friend, and copes by means of overcorrecting, trying to help the friends they have left to an overbearing degree, but not because they actually care for the well-being of their friends, but to make themselves feel better. It may sound like I'm setting Lyra and Megan up to be perfect for each other, a romantic pair that can help each other feel complete, but I feel as if platonic relationships can be equally as beautiful as romantic ones, which is the main angle I want to go for with them. Lyra also serves a secondary purpose. I would want this show to employ traditional musical theater elements into its narrative, big character-driven songs with a heavy emphasis on motifs and overarching themes. Lyra being a musician can be a metatextual introduction to the musical element of the show, and if you can't tell, I was really inspired by Centaur World when writing this, which I really recommend you check out. Our next character is Vapor Trail, a Pegasus stallion. Vapor Trail is a character who, upon introduction, you as a part of the audience would be confused as to why anybody would be friends with him. He's loud, he's rude, he's impulsive, he's spiteful, but he acts out for a reason. Vapor Trail is a classic example of someone who is crying for help, but doesn't know what's wrong with them, seeking answers for a question they don't know they have, as they hide their true emotions. He's a character who grew up very disconnected from his family, so the only ponies around him that can recognize his plight is his longtime friends. And he doesn't reject their affection either. He may be a jerk, but he can be very tender, willing to fight tooth and nail to protect his friends, even if he is just all bark and no bite. And finally, we have Trixie, an Earth Pony mare. Trixie, despite being a magician, getting her cutie mark in magic, she heavily suffers from imposter syndrome, as every other pony in her field are all unicorns, so she grew up feeling ostracized and out of place amongst her peers. Trixie mainly studies potions and incantations, but still doesn't feel adequate enough since unicorns are often given a massive head start in life when it comes to magic. But thankfully, her friends are there as a support system to help her celebrate the small victories, and allows her to feel satisfied with herself rather than feeling satisfied with the expectations ponies have for her. This is absolutely not a metaphor for anything. The final character I want to go over is not a part of the main cast, but is our central overarching antagonist, who would only be a whisper or a rumor throughout the first season before being fully introduced. The main antagonist is Somnambula, a witch who surprisingly appears to be human. She is believed to have lived in Equestria for centuries, having intentionally escaped there after facing accusations of her practicing witchcraft, but she could not bear the truth of the new reality that she lived in. Her answer was to become an actual witch, learning powerful spells to manipulate her soul to become her ideal self. In exchange, however, she needs to feed off the energy of other magical creatures. She's a kook, but calculated, a genuinely threatening menace who has felt hurt beyond imagine and wants others to hurt like she does. The reason why she's significant in Megan's journey is because she is the only one with the knowledge on how to get back to her home, and she is the only one who might know where her brother is. With a more focused cast and a clearer goal, this series would have a defined beginning, middle, and end, with satisfactory conclusions for each of our characters. This series is not going to be episodic, it will be serialized. The only actual standalone episodes might be the first third of each season, as we introduce new concepts or witness the fallout of the season prior. Now you may be thinking, wow, this sounds really cool and all. Thank you, I know. But it also sounds like this would be a short narrative, possibly without the longevity of Friendship is Magic that made the show so important. And I get it, if you want a show with a rich world to explore, you want to explore it as long as possible. So I envision that for every 3 seasons or so, we change gears and focus on a new group of characters and a new conflict that will define the following 3 seasons. This can be a great avenue to get experimental, bring in fresh talent, and explore different parts of its world more. You can even bring back characters from previous arcs to see where they are in life after their journey, which can be rewarding for longtime viewers. Now call me crazy, but in a hypothetical universe, if the show got insanely popular, I would intend for this series to have 9 seasons and a movie, with the movie being an entirely new musical that ties in everything from the last 9 seasons, being a definitive send-off for everything that came before. Now, like all of my creative videos, I want to ask you, if you were given the opportunity to make a 6th generation of My Little Pony, what would be your pitch? I'd love to read some in the comments below. Thank you for watching. I've been May, and I'll see you next time.